Welcome back, viewers, for another episode of ENC Question Reflection, where you learn truth, knowledge, and understanding. Today, we're going to be talking about physical discipline. It's going to be a rather interesting conversation because I know there's a lot of people who do not believe in physical discipline, let alone any other kind of discipline. So before we get started, I want to go ahead and remind you that if you have not done so already, to go ahead and subscribe to this channel. Make sure that you hit the notification bell and select all so that you do not miss any of the material. Also, make sure that you like, comment, and share this video to family, friends, or anybody else who might benefit from this specific video. Also, make sure that you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So today, like I said, we're going to be talking about physical discipline. And I know that I've discussed this before. However, I will say this. I don't think that I've went into deep conversation about physical discipline. As you know, there is a good way to discipline, but like I have said before, it does not work with all kids. Just because you can verbally discipline one doesn't necessarily mean you ain't gonna have to physically discipline another one. All children are different. So the big question here is this: is physical discipline actually helping us or hurting us? A lot of people seem to think that physical discipline will actually cause a child to be more physical or violent towards the end of their life. Okay, well, we're gonna get into that. We're gonna talk about that. So first thing I'm gonna say about physical discipline is it's always a last resort. Don't be in here talking about I got to beat my kids every time I turn around. It's probably because that's not the kind of discipline that they are reacting to. Just because you feel like that's what you want to do doesn't mean that that's the kind of discipline that they're going to respond to. You have to know your children. You can't just be up in there talking about well, my parents beat me with belts and everything else. Well, belts and everything else might not work with your children. You have some children that be taking it, you look at them, they're like, well, God, does this even hurt? And they just looking at you like it doesn't hurt. And you're really not doing anything effective for them. So is it really helping us or is it hurting us? To be honest, it can be both. To be honest, it can go both ways. You can get to a point where you're like, hey, you know what? This is going to help the situation. And then you go and you're like, well, no, this didn't do nothing but cause more issues. So as the saying goes, children are going to follow your example. They're not going to follow your advice, if that makes any sense. You can tell a child all day long what you want them to hear. But if you're not doing that yourself, they're going to look at you as a hypocrite. And they're going to be like, well, which is it, Mom? Which is it, Dad? Am I supposed to do this or am I supposed to do that? Because you're telling me to do this, but you do it. So I need you to go ahead and I need you to tell me which is it? Because you're doing one thing, but you're telling me to do another. You got to tell me what is it? So physical discipline, meaning spanking, switches, belts, anything that's on a physical level, even grabbing, jacking them up, even those things can be considered. Anytime where you have to physically touch your child is going to be considered a physical discipline. As I always teach, verbal is the first line of discipline that you want to try. You always going to be like, all right, now this is what I expect out of you. This I need this done. And see, if those are the things that don't work, that's when you move past it. A lot of parents tend to forget that there's a second level to discipline. And no, it ain't the silent treatment, because that's not teaching them anything either. It's a mental discipline. It's a discipline where you're taking things that they love. Because when you're verbally talking to a child, you're talking to them and telling them things that you want them to hear. But when you move past that and you go to a mental discipline, you start hitting them in areas that you know it's going to hurt. So mental discipline is really applied when you've got to know your child, when you've got to know what they love, what they like, what they dislike, what they don't want to live without. Nowadays with teenagers, things like phones, games, any kind of devices, friends, anything like that, where it will mentally impact them um, is mental discipline. It hits them on a mental or psychological level. It goes past that. All right, I told you what I said, and you didn't do it. So now we're going to go through that. Grounding, as some people would put it, is considered it's a psychological form of discipline. Because when you're grounding them, you're not going to sit there and yell at them all day long, talk to them all day long. It's the grounding. They're sitting in a room, they're thinking about what they done did, and if they learn, they learn. If not, they're going to be right back in the same position that they put themselves in the first place. So that would be a form of mental discipline. And I'm only going through this again because if you haven't watched my video about disciplining with a purpose, then you're not really going to know what I'm talking about. But disciplining, you have to be disciplining with a purpose. Discipline is about correction. It's not about, okay, my kids are getting on my nerves and I just got to take my anger out on something. That's not discipline. That's you using your children that's you using your children as a way to let out anger that you cannot control yourself. So when you're disciplining your children, you have to do it for a reason, for a purpose. You don't just go and discipline your children and just be like, well, what was the reason what you did that? I can't even tell you. You always want to be doing it for a reason. If you have to resort to putting your hands on your child, there has to be a reason for it. And I know a lot of people is like, well, I'm scared to do that because, DCF is going to get involved. Let me explain something to you about DCF and CPS. Yes, CPS is meant for Child Protective Services. It's out there to protect children. But when you're disciplining with a purpose and you're doing it moderately, that don't mean spank your child for 15 minutes. Come on now, think about that. 15 minutes. You put a boundary on the amount of physical discipline that you have, and you keep it there. Oh, I'm gonna spank you. I'm gonna hit you 2 times with a belt. They're not gonna say anything to you about that because you're not physically abusing your child. You're disciplining in your child, and it is a form of correction. It's a lot different than you just. They got whelps all across the face and all on their back, and one goes this way and the other one goes that way. That is uncontrollable. That's a wild form of abuse. And of course, they're going to look at it like, well, what did you do? Was you mad? You never want to discipline your child when you're angry. And I know a lot of parents will be like, well, when they get on my nerves, they get on my nerves, and I just want. Well, at that point, they're getting on your nerves. You're taking your anger out on them. It's not really about them being corrected, which is what discipline is about. It's not about them being corrected anymore. It's about you fueling your anger and you taking it out on them. So when you're doing that, you have to do that for a reason. And then that goes back to the topic of it. Is it helping or hurting us? When you're doing that, it ain't helping you at all. It ain't helping you at all. I see parents all the time in grocery stores and in retail shops, and they have children that are completely out of control, and they can't control them. They don't know how to control them because they only know how to control them when they're upset, and they definitely can't show their anger in public like that because then, of course, people are gonna think they're abusing their kids. You have to be careful about how it is that you're disciplining your child. That's just what it is. Now, I was hoping there was going to be a few people that maybe want to speak on this and would come on the panel with me and talk to me about their ideas of how important physical discipline is, or whether they don't believe in it at all. Because you'll get a lot of parents or people who have children, maybe they're not actually their own kids, but you'll get a lot of them that will that don't believe in physical discipline at all. And it's always those parents who, I'm going to put it to you like this. Like I said, there's 3 ways you can discipline: verbal, mental, and physical. Physical is always your last resort, and it's always done in moderation. So, and very carefully too. You'll get some who don't believe in going that way. Well, then you'll get kids who are only going to respond to a physical form of discipline. And so once a parent has a child that is not responding to verbal and mental, they don't know what to do. Those are the parents that they're like, He's out of control. She's out of control. I don't know what to do with her, and I don't know what to do with them. And they lose their minds because when they were doing verbal discipline, their words never meant anything because they always went back on their word. So their word never meant anything. Then when they get mental discipline, they're taking things that they think the child loves because they really don't know their child like that. So they're only taking things that they think may work. They're only doing certain things that they think may work, or they're not keeping to what they said. If you ground a child for 72 hours, they let their child be grounded for 1 day and that's it. They call that a night. That's it. That's all. Oh yeah, you can come out now. I think you learned your lesson. No, I said 72 hours, but they don't hold to that. So you'll have parents that do that too. And so when a child is the last resort is to be physically disciplined, that child is going to say, well, I know my mama's going to say something and her word don't mean squat because she's lenient and she lets me get away with everything. And she can take anything she wants because now I'm so used to her taking this, I've learned to live without it. So now she don't have nothing mental to take from me. But mama don't believe in physically disciplining her child. So like I said in my video about disciplining with a purpose, you have to be careful how you physically discipline your child. When you're using physical discipline, if you always have to discipline twice. When you physically discipline your child, you have to discipline twice. And let me tell you what I mean when I say that. When you hit your child, you teach your child that is how you discipline. Even though that's the last resort, it never really should resort to that. However, sometimes it does. So you'll have children who will say, well, wait a minute, you hit me, so that means I have to do that. So when you discipline your child physically, after you have corrected the behavior itself with the physical discipline, you have to go right back around, and a couple hours later, you have to sit down and you have to say, let me explain something to you. Let me explain something to you. It had to go this far. I have to get physical with you, excuse me. I had to get physical with you because verbal didn't work. I talked to you, it didn't work. I grounded you, it didn't work. And I had to get physical with you. However, this is why I did it. So now you're verbally disciplining them because discipline is not always a negative thing. Discipline isn't always chastising or, coming down on your child. Discipline can be a correction that's, well, maybe they're not doing something quite right. Maybe they didn't wash their hands before they started cooking. So you disciplining them could be a verbal, could simply say, hey, you got to make sure you wash your hands before you cook some food because that's nasty. Therefore, you've corrected the behavior, but you did it verbally. You did it verbally. You did it, so that they could understand that. And that's still a form of discipline. It's still a form of correction. It's when you start getting back talk or they start being disrespectful or something like that, you have to start getting into a more serious verbal, and then of course a more serious mental, and then of course if it leads to the physical, then it goes there. So is physical discipline really helping us or hurting us? I'm going to tell you right now, I think the lack of it is actually causing a lot of problems because you have parents who aren't doing it at all. They're disciplining their child, but they're disciplining their child out of aggravation. They only discipline their child when they become aggravated with it. I'm going to give you a really good example of a mom I saw just the other day, and her child was cussing at her. And at first she thought it was funny. They're like, I see this so much. It's crazy, but it's odd that you'd see it as much as I do, but I do. And she was cussing with her mom. She was talking to her mom and, stuff like that. And then out of nowhere, her mom was just snapped off. Like, you need to stop cussing and stuff. So wait a minute. Now you're aggravated with your daughter. So now you're going to tell her to stop cussing? She should have told her to stop cussing when she first cussed. Not after she got aggravated with the fact that she was cussing and people were looking at her in the store and now she's embarrassed. You can't just discipline because you're stuck in your feelings. Discipline isn't about you, it's about them. Discipline is about correcting their behavior. And you have to remember, so is physical discipline helping us or hurting us? The lack of it, the lack of discipline, period, is hurting us. Parents are not disciplining their child at all. It's not even that they're physically getting them or it's that they're not disciplining them, period. They're not disciplining them to a point where it's effective. Let's say you discipline your child and you yelled at him for something, and but your words really don't mean anything. I have a video called Does Your Words Hold Weight? And you have a parent who's verbally disciplining their child, but that's all you do is just yell all the time. Your child is going to learn to tune you out. Your child is going to learn to say, well, I don't really care how loud you get. You say the same stuff all the time, and you can tell me I'm grounded all you want to, but 20 minutes later, you're going to be loving and hugging on me, so I can deal with you for 20 minutes. Children learn to adapt to you. They learn very quickly that the stuff you say, it doesn't mean anything. It's water under the bridge. It's just there. It just keeps going. It doesn't stop. It just goes. Physical discipline is, like I said, is a last resort. It does have a lasting effect on a child if you are not if you're not sticking with it. So if I choose to use a switch with my children, I promise you I've told them a million times the same thing. I promise you that I have mentally taken whatever it was that I needed them. I've done that. And physical is the last resort. And that's what they respond to. You'll have children who respond to physical discipline, but you'll have children who don't. You'll have children who all you got to do is tell them and they'll listen to what you said. You'll have children that my family's moving around so much in the house. As a mom, it's me like a mama cat kind of thing. I'm starting to wonder why they're all moving around. They move around so much. Like, wait a minute. I thought y'all was good before I sat down. I'm sorry. So I think everybody's good. I think I just heard everybody get quiet. But that's mama. That's me being Mama Bear, worrying about everybody else in the house. But when I speak, my words hold weight. See, being raised in the system, and having living in group homes and stuff and foster cares, and they have systems. So I learned to do things a little systematically. Sometimes it'd be like that. Sometimes you have to get mental with them. You have to create a system that will work, that will be effective to them. Sometimes it doesn't faze certain kids. Some kids are so mentally bogged down with whatever they got going on that you can take anything from them. They can lay in darkness and sleep all day. Your mental discipline ain't gonna do squat for them. You're gonna have to get physical with a child. And I've talked to a lot of DCF people and HRS and whatever people call them. Different states call them different stuff. And then CPS, of course, Child Protective Services. And I've actually I've talked to a lot of them, and I've told them, well, let me tell you something. There's a lot of people scared to discipline their kids because they're worried about somebody calling you on them and you knocking at their door and making it seem like they're abusing their child. it only goes so far to where people are like, oh, well, you know what? That's physical. You know, you're physically abusing your child. First thing they're going to do is they're going to look in your refrigerator, make sure you're feeding your kids. They're going to make sure you're feeding the kids. They're going to make sure you have shelter over the kids. They're going to make sure. Yeah. He went there. They're going to make sure that you're feeding them. They're going to make sure that you're taking care of them. They're going to make sure that they're healthy, that they have clothes to wear, that their shoes aren't messed up. I mean, this is the stuff that they do. I actually had somebody call a long time ago. I had somebody call when my kids were a lot younger. They called CPS or HRS, they called them. And the people knew us. And I will straight up tell somebody, look, I'm not abusing my children, but I'll tell you what I am doing. And I'll tell you this. You're going to come in here and try to tell me how to discipline my children. But what you're not going to do is you're not going to show up to court dates if my child gets in trouble with the law, if they go to prison. You're not going to be in that courtroom defending my child. You're not going to be in there supporting us as a family, even though we've tried everything because we stopped whipping our children or disciplining our children effectively because you guys said that we were abusing our children. You're not going to be there. When my child gets into so much trouble because we didn't discipline them and they end up dead, you're not going to be at the funeral to watch their bodies go into the ground. So don't sit in here and tell me how to raise my children, because my job as a parent, my husband's job as a parent, is to make sure that we raise decent children, to make sure that our children are fed well, that they're taken very good care of, and that they don't end up in the system or in that ground. And I have told so many of them that. We actually, like I was telling you, we actually had somebody come to our house. He knocked on our door. When I opened the door and he saw who it was, he said, oh, y'all have a good day, and shut the door. Reputation goes a long way. A good name goes a very long way, even though that doesn't have anything to do with this specific topic. Physical discipline, spanking our children properly, don't 15-minute whippings is ridiculous. Whipping them just anywhere is ridiculous, but it's not helping our kids to not have a discipline. And when I say it like that, what I mean is this. What I mean is every child is different. You have a child who doesn't respond to verbal and mental discipline. It doesn't mean you start this, well, I don't believe in hitting my children, so I don't know what to do with them. Well, let me tell you this. When those parents resort to sending their children to boot camps, when those parents send their children off to farms or group homes, I promise you, they may not physically spank your child, but I promise you, they are hurting the next day. They are physically hurting the next day. They're having to run laps. They're having to work all day long. Boot camps, they're having to do push-ups. They're having to do, the push-ups, the pull-ups. That's all physical discipline. I never said you had to spank your child. If you choose to do that, so be it. They use a very long, whenever they're correcting a horse, they use a very long stick. It's a whipping, and to correct a horse. No, your children aren't animals, but what works. We have to, they say, like, whip your children into shape. You have to discipline your child properly. Like I said, what works for one child is not necessarily going to work for another child. You'll have kids who respond to verbal orders easily. You tell them, all right, stop doing that, and they'll stop. You'll have some that won't. You'll have some that, you got to take it to the next level, which is mental discipline. You'll take a device, you'll take the internet, you take whatever, you think that they love. And then if that doesn't work, well, let me tell you what to expect with physical discipline, and then you take it from there. We always have a set amount. If we ever have to take it to a physical level, we have a set amount of spankings that we'll do. And we make sure that it hits them in the spot on their bare butt and not on any other part of their body. And that is a controlled form of physical discipline. No, I'm not telling parents to go out there and just start spanking your children and you don't know how to do it properly, so you're just doing it kind of just whatever. I'm not saying that at all, because when that happens, you end up getting abuse charges, because now you're lashing, hitting them in the face, you're hitting them in their backs, their private areas. Where else have I seen kids get hit? The inside of their thighs. You know, then they go to school wearing shorts and you're just like, really? What happened right there? I've had kids we were talking about physical discipline at one time when I was subbing at one of the classes, and they told me, they said, Miss Williams, you know, my parents punched me in my chest. And it's sad because I'm a mandated reporter, and you get stuck in having to report things that you don't necessarily may not want to report, because you I don't know, you get stuck in the middle of, you know, this child needs discipline, but you can't be hitting the kids in their chest where their heart is, because you could stop their heart doing stuff like that, you know. And then you'll get parents who are like, I don't know why you know, why we're getting, you know, DCF called on you. But come here, let me show you the side of your child's face. Let me show you that. Let me show you the marks that you left all over your kid. Or, you know, kids come, I lost my front tooth. Oh, baby, how you did that? My mama knocked it out. What? You know, I'm not saying that's the kind of discipline, but I do believe that what is not helping the situation or the society with the kids that we have is that we have children who are not responding to verbal and mental discipline. They're not responding to their parents telling them, stop doing this, stop doing this, stop doing this. They're not responding to that. They're not responding to get all their stuff taken or their room stripped. And then the parents just stop discipline after that and just tell them that they're a lost cause. Children are not being taught at a young age to sit still. They go to school and they go all jittery, and then they give them candy and stuff and all kinds of sugar. And when they bounce around in school, and they end up calling them, well, you know, your child's ADHD. No, my child ain't ADHD. Let me show up at that school and I'm going to show you just how much child is ADHD. They tried to tell me that my child was ADHD, my middle son. I knew darn well my child ain't, because I don't even believe in ADHD. And I went to school. They called me the pop-up parent, the drive-by. Matter of fact, they got these little stickers that you put on. You put your name on whenever you go to the school, because they got to, you know, make sure that you're the parent. And they got the names, and then right under it, they used to either write drive-by or they used to try to write pop-up. And I'd go right in the classroom, and I just watch them. They wouldn't even know I'm sitting there. And then I'd say, well, I don't see how you're telling me my child is ADHD. Oh, because he don't sit still. I'm standing right here, he ain't moved. Well, it's because you sitting there. If you're going to be ADHD, if you're going to have a mental condition, you're going to have a mental condition. You're going to have a mental condition whether I'm sitting there or not. For instance, autism. Some people try to say, well, autism ain't real. No. Autism. You're going to be autistic whether I'm sitting here or not. There's not no, well, you know, he's just not being autistic right now. Oh, yes, he is. Autism is real. He's being autistic. That's why some parents will tell me, well, my kid has autism. Please don't start doing that. Please don't start saying your child has autism and they don't, because you want to make an excuse for why you can't discipline your child properly. Don't do that. I had a parent do that. Don't do that. Your child is not autistic. Well, how can you tell me he's not autistic? Because he ain't autistic when I'm in the room with him. All of a sudden, he's autistic when you come in there. Really? No, he ain't autistic. He wants some attention. Give it to him. There's a difference in something that they're doing that they can't control. I've seen plenty of autistic children who cannot. I gave a perfect example. Perfect example. Walking to a first grade class. I quit doing elementary because they do the most. I can't stand it. Walked into a first grade classroom. First thing the lady told me is, don't worry about that kid right there. He's just going to take his car and he's just going to roll it all over the classroom and he's just going to be everywhere. Just let him do what he want to do. I said, for what? I'm one of those. I like order and I like structure in my classrooms. I ain't with all that. That's why I don't have problems with kids. She's like, no, she was one of the teacher's aides. She's like, no, he's got autism. I said, okay, and your point, keep going. Why do you let him just go whenever, do what he want to do? See, they don't know, but autistic kids are extremely smart. All they need is structure. That's it. They thrive off of routine, structure. They do the same thing every single day. They're just, all they need is structure. But when you're just letting them do whatever they want to do, you're not giving them any structure. So he's going to continue to do what he's used to doing, which is run all over your classroom. So I had him sit down. And, he's used to getting up. So he kept trying, no, sit down. And he sat down. She told me all the other kids had to do the work. All the other kids have to do the work. They can get three Skittles. I said, no, he's going to do the work too. She's like, no, he's not going to do it. He's just going to, you know what I did? I told him, I said, come here. After everybody else, I given everybody else they were, I said, come here. I sat right there and I said, what is that? And it was first grade. So, you got to count the little cars and you write what it is. So I said, how many cars is that? That boy sat right there and counted them. And I looked at him and I'm looking at the teacher like, what is y'all talking about? He did the whole paper sitting right next to me. I gave him his 3 Skittles. She said, I can't believe it. What you mean you can't believe? What can't you believe about it? What can't you believe about it? It goes back to discipline. It goes back to asking people and telling people to do what they're supposed to be doing in the beginning. It goes back to that. It all goes back to discipline as a young child. Children do not have ADHD. Children have a lack of discipline. Children have too much sugar flowing through their bodies. All that bread they give them at school trying to fill them up, it's got sugar in it. What do you think carbohydrates turn into? Sugar. You think giving them a piece of bread is going to help them? No. What you think diabetics do when they go in, when the blood sugar drop? They eat a piece of bread. Shut right up. You giving them sugar. And then wonder why, and then wonder why they acting up. No, your child ain't ADHD. But they showing up trying to tell me mine was. He ain't moved since I've been in here, so how's he ADHD? Don't sit here and tell me, because I can tell you. I can tell you my child ain't ADHD. So look. Oh, well, he might. No. It's because you allow him to act like that in your classroom. See, what people don't realize, what teachers don't realize is a child is going to act how you allow them to act. I don't care how you train them at home. How many parents have actually been able to sit around and say, well, my child don't act like that at home. I don't know what he's doing at school. And then the teachers want to call and be like, your child is a disruption. No, you have no control over your classroom. A teacher actually tell me that. Her own classroom, she could not get control of her own classroom. And she sat right there and asked me, she says, what do you do in my classroom that when I walk into my own classroom, everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing? I said, it's because I set the expectation in the beginning and I stuck to what I said. I don't kick it with them. I ain't hanging out with them until they know exactly how I am and what I expect from them. They're going to do what I tell them to do and act like I want them to act. They're going to have order and it's going to be structure in the house. in the classroom. She said, well, I could try to do that. I said, baby, it's going to be hard for you to do it now because you ain't doing it in the beginning. It's the same way with disciplining kids. You got to do it in the beginning. You can't get a 14-year-old and be like, oh, okay, so we finna change all of this. Your words don't mean squat because you didn't make them mean squat when they was young. So you telling them, go sit down. They're going to be right back up because they don't think you mean what you say. You can't just be doing this. You got to actually mean what you say. You can't just be like, I'm fixing to take your video game and it's still sitting there. Mom, can I play the video game? Yeah, go ahead because you're too busy to actually discipline them. Didn't you just say you was going to take the game? Yeah, I ain't got time for that now. And you wonder why they act the way they act. They act the way they act because you're allowing them to act the way they act. They act the way they act because they think that's how they're supposed to act because that's how they're used to acting. They ain't used to doing what they're supposed to be doing because you don't make them do what they're supposed to be doing. physical discipline would help those who need it. There are some children who don't need physical discipline. There are some parents who actually have children who have, since they was a child, since they was a baby, have established the fact that my word, I'm gonna say what I mean. I'm gonna mean what I say. And if you get to where I gotta get, then this is gonna happen. And them kids believe that. They put that wholesome fear into them, which is a healthy fear. Why do you want to intimidate your children? No. Wholesome fear ain't got nothing to do with intimidation. Wholesome fear has to do with a healthy fear that you'll have for your parents, that you trust and believe what they say they're going to do it. You have to have that. You can't just be sitting up in there thinking you just going to raise an excellent child, but you're going to sit back and wait for them to be raised excellent. That ain't how it goes. It's not going to work like that. Physical discipline is not going to be effective if you don't utilize it effectively. If you use it as a last resort. If you use physical discipline as a first resort and everything they do wrong, you hit them, then yes, there are going to be children who grow up to think that that's how you're supposed to do it, and they will physically abuse their own children. And 9 times out of 10, the men will physically abuse their wife, or the women are going to be physically abusive to their children and their husbands, because that's what they know. Women will try to discipline a man by hitting him, thinking or threatening him, making him think that, bad things are going to happen if he leaves her or whatever. So if you don't use your physical discipline properly, absolutely, it's going to hurt us more than it's going to help us. Absolutely, it's going to sit back and it's going to be like writing gibberish on the chalkboard. It don't mean squat. The idea of discipline is a correction. It's not to put your anger out on a child. It's not to make a child feel like they ain't squat, they ain't nothing. It's not that. That's not what discipline is about. Discipline is about correcting a behavior, correcting an action, correcting a thought before it turns into an action. You always correct a behavior first by verbally telling them that the action is wrong, that the thought is wrong, that what they said was wrong, their tone of voice was wrong. It's always verbal. And if that doesn't work, you resort to mental. Now with children, you learn your child, and you can't take a video game and it's from a 2-year-old. Shoot, nowadays I done seen some 2-year-olds with some phones, and I don't know why they got them phones, but I wouldn't let my child that my children are 15, 13, and 12, and they do not have their own phones. I don't want them to have their own phones. And that's not a mental discipline. That's me teaching them that if they can't be responsible enough, them things is not they're not gonna be able to have a phone. I'm not finna pay for no phone. You're gonna break the screen because you don't understand the value of it. Your children have to understand the value of everything that you buy them, or they're going to break it. Oh yeah, they're going to break it. Or they're going to, here it is. You buy them a new pair of shoes. They say, oh mama, I want these shoes. Oh my gosh, they $90, but mama, I really want these shoes. Next thing you know, you see them on their best friend's feet like, really? What are y'all switching? Y'all trading? Really? That's what y'all doing? One of my oldest son's best friends. So I buy shoes based on how they look. I don't really care who made them, how they made them, how much they cost. I don't care. So I bought my son a pair of shoes he really liked. Bought them from overseas. He loved them. Didn't cost much at all. His best friend, he traded these shoes for a pair of Jordans. Now, I don't play that. So I called his mom, like, did you know that your child is trading his shoes? Like, She was so mad. Like, he begged for these shoes, but then they switching them out with their friends. Children don't understand the value. They don't understand the value in the stuff that you buy. As long as you buying it, they haven't put forth anything. They haven't sacrificed anything for it. So they don't care. My hair I am so hot. Look, I exercised today, y'all, and I am hot. My metabolism is rolling. I know it. Whew. So look, physical discipline is a last resort, but for some children that only respond to physical discipline, they only respond to physical discipline. And normally the reason they only respond to physical discipline is because your words haven't meant squat from the jump. Hey, cuz, you want to get on here, you can. So look, normally physical discipline only works when your verbal and your mental don't mean squat. So normally a child who needs physical discipline, it's because you don't let them get 7 and 8 years old. They done got them own little personality, and your words don't mean nothing, and they don't believe you're going to take nothing from them. So now you got to get them. Now you got to get physical with them. If you do not train your child with your words when they are young, if those children do not fear you on a wholesome, healthy level, by the time they are 6 and 7, you gonna catch all kind of craziness, and you gonna be having to whip them with something. You're gonna have to catch a switch. I had a mom. She said her boyfriend told her that child ain't scared of no belt. And I told her, I said, they ain't scared of the belt. I said, you need you a switch. I said, watch this here. I walked outside, I cut a switch, walked right in here in the house, in the room they was in, and that boy went to hollering. I said, see, you know what this is? You have to use what they respond to. Getting them involved. Hey, Jenny. Regardless of whether or not you are in the right as a parent, there are hard to get rid of. I definitely avoid getting them involved at all. What are you talking about? I definitely avoid getting them involved at all times. And you never know. You have to use what works. You can't just be like, okay, well, I'm going to talk to this one. You could have 2 or 3 different children, and one child, all you got to do is tell them, all right. And they're like, okay, no more. Okay. You'll get some children that you'll be like, all right now. And they'll be like, and what? And I've seen kids do it to their moms before. And I'm just like, oh, you don't get him. It drives me nuts. I'm like, huh? You got to. But it makes you wonder if physical discipline will actually hurt them in the end. But the thing is, you have to be able to consciously tell yourself that you go through the different levels of discipline. So you go to the verbal, you tell them that don't work. You go to the mental part where you're taking stuff from and stuff. And then if that doesn't work, then you say, okay, look. And that's why I say when you have to physically discipline, you have to discipline twice. So first you're gonna have to get them with whatever you got to get them. Your hand, your switch, your belt, whatever that is that you're using. I don't suggest extension cords and pieces of furniture and things like that, of course. But I'm just shoes and like this, those two. But you have to resort to that. You have to be like, okay, so now let me tell you. Now I'm going to have to get you with this. I'm going to pop you this many times. And look, if you don't want this to happen again, I would advise you listen to what I say, which is verbal, when I say it. So therefore, you're taking them back to the verbal part. So when you physically discipline them, now you be like, okay, well, this is why I had to do that. And that's why the next time I tell you something, that's why you better stick to this. So physical discipline, spanking and stuff like that can be effective if it's used properly. Like I said in the beginning, if you guys are just now joining us, like I said in the beginning, you can't whip your child out of anger. Dorothy says, butt whooping. Yeah, I ain't saying that. Butt whooping worked great for mine, and they are great. Yes, you do have some very respectful children. I will say that. I will definitely say that. But that runs in the family because, we don't play the radio. But you cannot take your anger. You can't wait till you're aggravated with your child to use physical discipline. Like you can't be yelling, verbally cussing them, yelling them, or not even, you ain't got to cuss them, just yell at them. And then wait till they aggravate you or yell at you back. And now you're mad. Now you're aggravated. And now you're going to physically spank them. But the thing is, when you physically do it now, it's going to have a lot more behind it. It's going to have snapping off. It's going to have a lot of anger. It's going to have, I'm going to beat you till I don't feel anger no more. Or, and if you know, like I know, we'll beat you and talk to you at the same time. So we hitting that physical and that verbal at the same time. But then I tell you, the crazy thing is, you don't want to do, talking don't work. I try to talk. No. Talking, verbal, Dorothy, look, verbal has to come in the beginning, like when they're a kid. If you don't do it then, it's not going to work because your word has to hold weight. You can't just be like, go to your room. They're going to be like, especially your son now, he towers you. He almost 6 foot. If not already 6 foot. I'm gonna tell you that. If he doesn't believe that you mean what you say, they ain't gonna listen to you. They'll be like, they're gonna wait 5 minutes when they know you done forgot. Then they gonna then they gonna be like, oh. Or they're gonna go back to doing what they was doing. Stop jumping on the bed. Bounces on the bed some more. Your word has to mean something. Now you go in there and you get your switch and you tap them up. They're going to remember that because 10 minutes later, they still feeling it. So is it helping us? Is physical discipline helping us? Or is it creating more violence in the world? And it's something that you have to stand back. And like I'm going to say is that when we're disciplining on a physical level, we have to discipline on our physical level because we took it that far. The kids allowed it to get that far, but those kids have to understand there's a reason I had to take it to a physical level. When I have to ever spank my children, if I ever have to get them, you can best believe probably 30 minutes, maybe an hour later, I'm coming right back to them. Like, do you understand why it had to be taken that far? Yes, ma'am. Okay. So the next time we talk to you and the next time we tell you to do something, I would advise you to listen to what we say and not wait for us to bust into action. Vanessa, really, my poor word don't hold no weight with my crew. Girl, you better start because your children are young. I don't think you have any children over the age of, you don't have any kids in school, do you? I don't think you do. Correct me, because I know you know them your kids. But your children are young, and if they are, they're younger. They're younger, like young. So you may not feel like your words hold weight now, but what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to mean what you say because you are going to catch it. When they get older and they start snapping, they start forming these attitudes and these personalities, 3, 2, and 1. I thought so. I didn't think you had older children. See, so you have them real young. Right now, you have the upper hand with them. You can gain control over them. I know it's hard because they're like 3-2, but you can gain control. And I'm going to tell you this, you may not like this, but get you a switch. Because if it has to get to that point, you need to take it to that point. I mean, you don't want to, just, be beating them. You want to tap them legs up because you need them to be corrected. If not, you're just going to make it harder. And every year they get older, it's just going to be harder and harder and harder and harder to discipline them. And I hate to say it like that, but that's what it is. And CJ, he's 2, but he's been with us since he was 3 weeks old. And I have trained him to the point with a switch. I have trained him to the point where all I have to say is, where is my switch? He's been trained since he was about probably 8 or 9 months old. He knows that little bitty TV switch, it ain't nothing but this big. That thing hurts, and he knows it. He don't care what size it is. If he sees it, he knows it hurts. Matter of fact, he'll take off running. He sees it, he's taking off running because he knows it doesn't feel good. But I haven't had to whip him in a very long time. And I mean a very long time. Because all I have to say to him is, where's my switch? Because if he hasn't stopped by the time I say, where's my switch? And I got my switch, he gonna get it. He gonna stop. He'll stop crying he'll cry when his mama come. But he's still like that. That's why she says, spare the rod, spoil the child. Yes, you have to. If you spare accountability to your child, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. They're going to be spoiled. They're going to continue to do what they want to do, how they want to do it, because you ain't holding them accountable for nothing. It has to start when they're little. It absolutely does. Vanessa say it takes a few times. The reason I'm reading y'all comments is because we also live on YouTube, so they don't get to see yours and you don't get to see theirs. So it takes a few times, but they will get in line. Then my son apologizes so we can be best friends. He goes, girl, you just said the wrong thing to the wrong person. Don't be best friends with your child. That's how mine are with my lip flop. You check like this. Look, you gotta be like that. They have to know that there's an order. Like, discipline is all about correction. It's all about when you do something wrong, they got to correct it. Like, I know a lot of parents, especially a lot of young parents, will spank their child out of aggravation. Like, the friend might be over, and then they'll be jumping on the bed or doing something in the other room, and then they'll yell at it, all right, y'all better stop. And then they just keep saying, all right, y'all better stop. But they never actually get up and move through the steps of discipline. I told you to stop, so let me do this. Now you're still not going to stop. Okay, let me do this. So that's what I think a lot of parents forget to do that. They forget to move through the steps of discipline where I told you this. Now I'm fixing to get mental with you. I'm finna do some psychological discipline, taking things from them, phones, whatever. And now I'm gonna, since you didn't do that, I'm gonna have to go ahead and I'm gonna give you these 2 licks and let's see if you can stop now. They have to know that your words mean something. And I think that the lack of, let me put it like this. The video is physical violence or is physical discipline helping us or hurting us? Physical discipline itself isn't helping us or hurting us. It's the lack of discipline itself. Like I said, you'll have parents who they'll yell at their kids, they'll take stuff from their kids, but they do not believe in touching their kids. And so when it goes past the point, because all children are different, you'll have some children who are who respond better to verbal discipline, and some who respond better to getting their stuff taken, which is a mental discipline. And then you'll have some who just don't care about none of that, and you're gonna have to hit them. They're hard-headed, and so you have to physically get them. You'll have children like that. So you'll have a lot of parents who will say, okay, well, I done said what I said. I done took all their stuff. Their room ain't got nothing in it. It's been stripped. They don't have anything but clothes. Okay. I got to put them in interface. I'm going to have to put them in a group home. I'm going to have to do, why? Why are you going to put them somewhere else because have you physically tried to physically discipline them? Get them. I don't know how many times I told parents, get a switch, get you a correction, get something that's physical. And they'll say, no, I don't want to hit my kids. Well, you finna send your child off because you don't want to hit them. You send them to boot camp, they gonna physically discipline them because them jokers is gonna be doing push-ups, they finna be doing sit-ups, they finna be running. Your child gonna lose all this weight going to boot camp. But that's to say, what's crazy is I can tell mine to stop and they act crazy like they don't hear me because your word don't mean anything. And their dad can call from and tell them to stop and they comply. You know why? You know why? Because his word means something. His word means something. It's because, one, kids are always trying to impress their father anyways. But when it comes to a man, it's that bass in the voice. Normally when daddy said, all right, now you better stop. It's like, because daddy's more likely going to physically discipline them just like that than mommies are. Because mommies, we want to be all nurturing and, oh, baby. Don't pat them after they get their behind tore up because now you just lost all respect. You get moms who daddy will go and spank them. I think I got dry oil on my hands because my hair looks greasy now. You'll get some parents who daddy will go discipline them. And then when daddy disciplines them, they run right to mommy. And mommy's like, oh, it's okay, baby. Girl, you better stop doing that. Because now daddy's word means something. Your word don't mean squat. You the nurturer. You're the one to pet. You're the one they're gonna knock all their feelings off to. You're the one they're gonna go and they're gonna be like, oh, pet me, love me. That hurt. But they're gonna respect daddy. And I'll tell you that, I learned that the hard way. The hard way. Because I didn't do that with my first child. I used to pet. And I had some hard times. I had some very, 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 very hard times trying to get him to understand when I say what I mean is what I say. Now he towers over me. But I'll tell him in a heart, you want to take it to the grass? Because I'll take it to the grass. You want nice mommy or mean mommy? I'm going to give you the option to get nice mommy or mean mommy. It's your choice. Your consequence. So if you want me nice, make that decision to keep me nice. You want me to be mean? Keep on. And that they know, let's not cross that thin line right there with mom. Because I'm going to snap off. So they try not to get me to that point. Dorothy say, they have to know when you're serious and when you're playing. I just give my baby the look. And he knows what time it is. Let me tell y'all a story. It's a funny story. This child wasn't even my child. I'm standing in front in a grocery store. And it was this lady. And her child was standing in the basket in front of me. And I think I was at Save-A-Lot or something. And her child was playing with the little candy bars and the stuff on the side. So he kept touching it and she's trying to pay for her groceries and stuff. And he just standing up in the car, just playing with him. And so she keeps turning around. She's like, stop. Keep paying for her stuff, really doing her little cry stuff. She's like, stop. So he turned around and he caught sight of me and I just stared at him. That little boy sat down in that darn seat. And she looked up at me and she's like, what did you do? And I said, I didn't do nothing. And she was like, I said, all I did was look at him. She said, well, you're going to have to teach me that look. I said, honey, it's hard to master, but I can try. I said, you got to take all the emotion out of your face. They got to know you mean business. This little boy don't even know me. Dorothy said, because you don't even look like you could be mean. I don't normally have to be mean because I set the expectation in the beginning. I was saying this in the beginning of the video that I set these expectations in the beginning, like off the jump. Like when I walk into a classroom, it's already like, no, we're not doing it. Sit down, shut your mouth, be quiet. And then the other kids will be like, oh, one child tried one time. He was like, you just a substitute. All the kids in the rest of the class, that's Dortavius, he'll tell you, One of the kids, and all of her kids are, no, that's Miss Williams. You might want to sit down. Because I set the expectation. I have never had to write a referral, and I ain't never had to touch nobody's child. And half the darn kids is related to me anyways. I ain't never had to, because I said, look, I can be nice, I can be mean. It's your choice which one you want. You want me to be nice? You want us to get through class? You want us to, then let's do that. If not, if you want to, then we can go round and round. I can kick you out of the class. You don't want to be here. But I've never had no problems with it. So I mean, I can be mean. I can be real mean. I can be real not so nice. But I don't really normally have to do that, because I have already set the expectation in the beginning when I first meet people. Let me tell you, when I first meet people, they already know. I said it. Even in the little classes, even in the little, like kindergarten and first grade and second grade, I don't because when I teach stuff, I teach like life skills and stuff like that and respect. And I don't feel like first and second graders can really understand when I'm lecturing, when I'm talking. The middle school kids, they can understand what I'm talking about. I'm just not I'm not the lady that wears the overalls and goes A, B, C, D, E. I can't do it. I can't do it. 3 years, Robert. I have been substituting for 4 school years, excuse me, 4 school years. So 4 school years is a little bit less than, 4 years, because school's only like 9 months. But it is, yes, Dorothy, it is. It's in the bloodline. But the thing is, it goes back to discipline. And I know, and the thing is, I know if I can discipline kids that don't even know me, that are just meeting me, because at the 6th grade center, if y'all don't know, at the 6th grade center here, you get to meet new kids every year, because if you didn't know them from 5th grade, they don't know you in 6th grade, because they go to a whole new school. The 6th grade has its own center, all for kids who are only in the 6th grade. So when they come in, they don't know you. So I know that if I can take kids at that age and I can have them to respect me and to do what I'm asking them to do and to follow directions, I know that parents can also do it. And I think that, like I was saying in the beginning of the video, when I was talking to some HRS people and to CPS people, I said, y'all are making people very scared to discipline their children. And I was telling her, I was like, me, I don't care what y'all got to say. I'm going to discipline mine, because like I had told them, y'all ain't going to be at no funeral for my children if anything happens, because I ain't take care of mine. And you're not going to be there standing in front of a judge trying to support me, because I didn't raise mine scared of you not to discipline my children. So now he out there doing whatever God knows what. And I got to sit in the courtroom with daddy sitting next to me wondering where we went wrong. You ain't not going to be there to support me. So I have quit being scared of HRS and CPS, but that's just me. There's a lot of parents out here scared to discipline their children because they're scared of getting their children taken from them. Even though they feed them every day, they clothe them, they provide shelter for them, they raise in them with morals and standards, and they discipline them, whether it's verbal or mental or physical. They're scared to do that now because they're scared of getting their children taken from them. So then they resort to, oh, well, I'm just going to yell at them. Well, then they run themselves crazy. And then you have a lot of parents that just start really, really, truly beating their kids because it just got to the point where they just can't control them anymore. And you have multiple children just running around getting into everything, and there's no order and structure. Physical discipline is extremely important because, like I said, it's a last resort, and you do have to double discipline. You have to discipline twice. You have to get them, then you have to go back and you be like, okay, this is why I had to get you. I do it to my children. If I have to physically get them for whatever reason, they will, I'll go back in there and I'll say, okay, so you know why I had to get you. You know why daddy had to get you. You know why,